Seeing more homeless people on city streets, you're likely not wrong.
Over the summer, 2 Fort Wayne city councilmen felt the same and asked if the mayor's office has a plan. As you can imagine, there isn't an easy answer.
21 Investigates reporter John Wagner joins us with an in-depth look at a growing issue.
Hey guys, good morning. You know, for the most part, a lot of people's experience of homelessness is limited to when they see somebody living on the street and they just do their best to avoid eye contact. But ignoring your fellow man has really never been the answer for a whole lot. So right now we're going to take a look at homelessness head on and find out how the city is addressing it.
Even though I can't see with my eyes, I can see in a different way.
On a recent Sunday, I met Hannah and Rebecca Hubley. They had an exhibition at the First Presbyterian Church in downtown Fort Wayne. They were the photographer and writer behind an exhibition telling the stories of unhoused people.
And I went into it thinking one way, and I'm like sobbing through their stories, but also it was a lesson to myself at the same time because, you know, my daughter doesn't have sight. She can't judge anybody, right? She sees people for who they are. But those of us that have sight, me being a visual artist, it's hard to separate what we see with what we don't know.
And Hannah's been blind her whole life, but she knows that truly seeing people has more to do with listening than with sight.
This is always how I've learned and listened.
Of all the stories Hannah heard, it was what one woman said that stuck with her the most.
She said compassion saved her life. I was totally able to understand that. I feel that compassion is such an undervalued trait these days, and yet it's so important, and I know its power.
And the Hubleys worry things might be getting worse. It's something city leaders seem to know.
Let's get down to a little bit of business.
This is the first extended interview 21 Alive did with Mayor Sharon Tucker shortly after being sworn in.
You are taking over for Mayor Tom Henry, longest running mayor.
I was in the control room for this interview, like I have been for many others. And many other times, I've heard several versions of the same answer to this question.
What are you going to do to improve the lives of people in Fort Wayne?
Yep, so I am very concerned about our unhoused population.
That was not the safe answer I expected, but it does make sense given that Mayor Tucker directly worked with homelessness at Vincent Village.
I was the executive director there. I have a passion in my heart for people who I call unhoused because when we say homeless, people think negatively of folks.
If you're fortunate enough, you might wonder how things can get so bad that you or your family might end up on the street. Mayor Tucker knows from her time at Vincent Village, it can start with just a tiny crack in the dam. She laid out one such scenario in under 60 seconds.
But for the fact that the rent went up, but for the fact that a kid got sick and parent had to take another day off of work, and that was one day too many, now you have to make the decision between paying the rent and paying for the car because you know the car gets you to and from work or gets the kids to and from. And so you go, I'll pay the car note this time and not pay the rent and think that I can make it up next time or they'll give me a break. And the landlord says, hey, no more breaks because I've given you 3 breaks already. And now you're out on the street. And so you start out by going, well, we'll just stay at grandma's house. Her senior living says you can't have any grandkids here. You can't have kids here at all, and so now you can't stay at grandma's, and so you're reduced to your car, and you know you can't have your kids in your car. Someone will call DCS on you, and so what do? And you find yourself unhoused.
Horrifying, isn't it?
This year, Mayor Tucker created the Homeless Services Manager position. The first person to hold that title is Amanda Fall. One of her first goals in the new position, get an accurate look at the city's homeless population. And that's what she did for 2 weeks this summer, with what's referred to as a PIT, or point-in-time count.
When I added all of that together, it came to about 2,250.
21 Investigates found that our shelters can only handle about 19% of that number. And that's only if they opened every bed to any person without any restrictions. But the reality is, not every bed is open to everyone every day.
It's heartbreaking, you know, once you get refused from 5 places, you're like, why would I even keep calling? But the more we understand about all the options that are out there, the more the people that are, you know, going into encampments can connect people to that right door, rather than giving them a list of 45 numbers to call.
We also found a long list of other barriers that might keep the unhoused on the street, like requiring weekly or monthly rent. Many of the shelters have different rules based on their own missions. The fact is, some shelters don't offer emergency beds at all, and so the options are limited while the demand is high. And if Amanda Fall is right, you can count on demand growing.
Shelters are talking about their numbers are increasing, their phone calls are increasing, their waiting list is increasing. Our township trustees, the number of requests they're getting for rental assistance and utility assistance to keep people housed are double what they were a year ago. Affordable housing is down everywhere, cost of living is up everywhere, and people's income is not increasing at the same rate.
And since it seems like our resources are already stretched thin, and maybe stretched even thinner in the future, the question is, what's being done? Amanda Fall updated City Council earlier this year. She said the city needs to prioritize increasing the number of beds available, creating shelters with fewer restrictions, and increasing affordable housing options. And a new low-barrier shelter is in the works.
Well, I would like to have it done yesterday.
But according to Mayor Tucker, it could be 9 months or more until that project is off the ground. For the Hubleys, their part in this story isn't about finding a solution, but they do still have good advice.
I don't have the answer how to solve for homelessness, but I do have the answer on how we can help them along. Don't judge what you're looking at.
There's so much more to these people.
If you're privileged, it may be easy to turn a blind eye to the problem, but the Hubleys know it's important to not look away from the person behind that problem.
They're a human.
We need to see these people again for their humanity, for what is beyond the surface, beyond what we see with our eyes.
As the congregation at First Pres will tell you, when you need to see something beyond what you can see with your eyes, that requires a little bit of faith. For 21 Investigates, I'm John Wagner reporting.